right. Welcome to Parks and Conversation, a rewatch journey of the classic NBC sitcom Parks and Conversation is one of the many programs that has come out of the Michael Schur universe.
We're what? Parks and Conversation.
What did I say?
You said Parks and Conversation. They're Parks and Recreation.
Well, you know what? Hopefully it's
a multiverse.
Yes. And I hopefully whenever these episodes are dug up from the time capsule that, people said this is the most important thing from humanity, they'll say like, they're one and the same. You can't watch Parks and Recreation without the companion piece, Parks and Conversation.
Right.
So I'm not trying to be braggy, but I think it's going to be good. So
yeah,
and important.
That was the original mission anyway. So
I think we're good and important.
Yes. Just like Leslie Knope.
Yes. Yeah, that's actually my personal mission statement. Jason Duman, be good and important. Speaking of which, I am Jason Duman, and right across the way, all the way across town, by the power of the internet and Grayskull, is my friend Jeremy Schmidt talking on the other microphone. Hey. He's already talked, but there he is.
It's me.
It's me, Jeremy. Yeah, so that happened. And we have been working our way through season 1 of Parks and Recreation. I said it right that time. All right.
I'm not keeping score.
Oh.
Yet.
Okay. If you hear my dogs barking in the background, they are excited for a friend to come over. So that's happening.
Like a dog, like a dog friend?
No, my wife's friend from work. Yeah. So there will be quilting involved, is what I understand. Quilting is something that I think it will come up again later in the show. Leslie Knope has many skills. Quilting is one of them.
I was wondering where you're going with that.
Wow. And when we get to that, I hope that my wife and her quilting skills will be at the same level as Leslie, and that she will too build create unity quilts. So, because that's the best use of a quilt.
Yeah, bringing families together.
Yeah, exactly. So today, Jeremy, which episode are we watching and discussing?
This is episode 5, The Banquet.
The Banquet. And this is basic premise of this episode is Leslie's mom, Marlene, is being awarded a town, like a prestigious award for the town of Pawnee called the Tellison Award. And it's got a banquet. There's speeches involved. It's a time for people to hobnob and all kinds of stuff. And so Leslie is very excited about it. But then she also sees the darker side of local politics.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much the show, right?
Yeah, you nailed it. All right. Well, episode 6 next week.
We'll see you guys next week.
All right.
So, and hilarity ensues. So off the top, just before we jump into details, how did you feel? I know you've seen this before, but how did you feel about this episode when you finished it? Like, what feelings were stirred up inside of you?
I was not prepared for this. Feelings? I know. No, I thought this was okay. This was an okay episode. I tried to track the storylines and all that, and this was a little bit more difficult as far as a typical kind of A/B Act 1, 2, and 3. A little bit. There's a couple of different storylines going on, as we'll find out. I thought this one was pretty good. Again, I think they're still trying to figure things out, and but there's some really funny parts to it as well, and I just like that they're still fleshing out these characters as we move forward with this first season.
Right. Yeah.
What did you think?
I liked Leslie less after watching this episode. Like the previous few episodes, I was like, okay, I think Leslie, she's intense, but I'm starting to like her. And then with this episode, I liked her less because it seemed like she was easily manipulated by her mother. And so, I mean, Leslie's trying to figure out what does it mean to be a local politician. But yeah, it just felt like the Leslie I know is going to be so much stronger than this Leslie.
Right.
And so it was frustrating. But I also started to like Mark more.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really generally don't like him. But this episode is like, hey, you're not the absolute worst.
Right.
You're just up there on the list of worst.
I think that's the hardest part about this rewatch is, again, I think we said this in like the first episode, is knowing where these characters kind of end up and then trying to take them by episode basis as though we've never seen it before. So right. I didn't. Yeah, Leslie was really. I like this episode from that standpoint. Leslie is figuring out what politics really means, and she makes a decision later that I think really I feel like sets her on a trajectory for the rest of even this series, because we don't really see this side of her too many more times as far as trying to be this, a real political animal in Pawnee.
Right. Yeah. So there will be some as she develops, but yeah, she really is trying to be a person of integrity. And so when she sees the dark side of local politics, she can't do everything that is required of her in the moment. And that's good, because what they were requiring of her was not a good thing. So, yeah. So Tom is the same. We're learning more about Ron in this episode. So it's just it was interesting. I felt kind of weird. Like next episode, everything kind of clicks. It's the season finale of the first season, and like I think it's a really solid episode. This one just kind of left me feeling just kind of like, well, I don't like these people very much.
Yeah.
So, all right. So the cold open of episode 5, it starts with Leslie walking up a hill, and I don't really understand why that they chose that specific location, but it was for like filming, because it didn't look convenient, but it was the site of where the Pawnee tribe killed a trader, like a white settler trader person who traded a baby for what is now Indianapolis.
Solid deal.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty good deal. But the natives there, they were not pleased with this man, and they eventually killed him. And Leslie goes into great detail about how they reused all of the parts of his body for for their purposes, like his legs were range sticks and that kind of stuff. And the solid joke from this this cold open is, back then Indians used all the parts of the settler. And I laughed real hard. I'm not going to lie, because that's, the classic stereotype trope is that, Native Americans honor the whole animal by using all of the animal. And here they're doing that with the settler as well.
Yeah. Do you think it was the settler's baby, or was it just like a spare one that they took along the journey? Like, in the Oregon Trail, the video game, right, when you hit one of the forts and you have to buy your supplies, do you think they just like, hey, we need a trading baby or babies?
Yeah, that is a great question. I don't know.
They never really answer that, which kind of bummed me out.
Yeah, well, maybe it's in a deleted scene.
Okay.
There's no way to know for sure until you get the actual screenplay for the table read. But I always had a hard time with the sadness of the Oregon Trail, because like if the parents died and the kids didn't, those kids were just out there on their own. So maybe it was a found baby that not necessarily acquired from a trading post or a fort. Maybe they came along the wreckage of
the fallout from dysentery.
Yeah, fallout from gross. And they found a baby, and they said, we better keep this baby. Might come in handy someday.
Yeah, like a land for like land trading. Just say,
for instance, hypothetically.
Yeah.
This got real sad.
Man.
So, Yeah, now I'm sad. And then the theme starts happening. Bump,
bump. I like the theme. Yeah. There you go.
Happiness again.
Bring it back.
Bringing it back around. And so cuts to Leslie talking about how her mom, Marlene Briggs Nope, is being awarded for the Tellison Award, which again is a prestigious award for local politicians and government workers. It sounds like the most boring thing you could possibly go to.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I was just going to ask, what do you think at this point is Leslie's motivation? That's what I was trying to like pinpoint. Like the fact that her mom's getting honored, she is kind of tagging along and trying to feel important along the way. But what does she want out of this episode?
Well, she says early on that she wants to, when she's talking about her speech, like throw a reference to the speech so that people know that she's also kind of a big deal in Pawnee.
Yeah.
She is a town player.
Part of that family dynasty that she keeps bringing up. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. She wants to be a part of a dynasty, like the Bushes or the Kennedys without the drinking problem.
Yeah.
No offense. Which is Leslie's joke. So what is interesting though, like a couple weeks ago, we talked about the town forum, and Marlene was at the town forum, and she looked like knowingly at Leslie as the whole thing was falling apart, but she managed to get out of the forum without taking a vote. And so at that time, you and I were like, is she proud of her, or is she kind of just like, oh, sorry, I got a text message. Bye, Mark has read. And here we do hear that Marlene shows some pride in Leslie for the way she handled the forum, even though it was a complete train wreck. And then she says, if you keep doing this kind of stuff, you'll eventually get your own Tellison Award. So Leslie is feeling like she's part of this dynasty. Marlene is feeding that in her, like saying, yeah, you can be a part of being a town influencer and get a Tellison Award. And so, so Leslie is definitely thinking bigger than the park, but she really only has the park.
Right.
To go on. So, and again, here we get a little bit more info on Ron, who gave a unrepeatable nickname to Marlene, and completely bleeped out. But he's basically saying everyone's afraid of Marlene, and that's the only reason anybody's going to go to this banquet,
right?
Because she's so mean. So.
And then also I just thought it was interesting that he says that's his proudest moment, his proudest accomplishment, which as we find out, Ron has done some stuff and like pretty awesome stuff in his life, and this is the thing he ends up being the most proud of early on in his art, his story. So I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah, and he really is a especially like his proudest achievement in government, because he doesn't want to do anything in government,
right?
And so the fact that other people are using the same nickname, it's like, I did something. This is my legacy. So where Leslie is trying to build a dynasty and legacy of leadership in Pawnee, Ron's legacy is I gave Marlene a great nickname.
Right.
So, everybody's got to have a goal.
That's right.
So, So then, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say mine was just to have a nickname.
You have many nicknames.
Oh, wow.
Right? You shared them with me before, revolving around your last name and a word that rhymes with your last name.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
So, I mean, then you don't get to choose your nicknames.
Yeah. But I got sad again.
Bump, bump, does that help?
Yeah, that helps. All right. So now Leslie and Tom are working on the speech, Leslie's speech, right?
Yeah. And I love, how Leslie thinks like Tom is a reliable person.
Right.
She still thinks that. And so she's asking him to like dictate. She's dictating her speech to him, and he completely like writes down the wrong things over and over again. Like Marlene Briggs Nope is my mother. And what Tom writes down is Marlene is morbidly obese. And he's like, that's not what I said. Really? Okay, I'll get that. And so he continually just misrecords her notes, which he did previously when trying to write down famous quotes that she might want to come back to someday. And And then Tom gives her advice on how to like do the speech, which is somebody who like speaks publicly fairly regularly. Everything he said is not good. It's not a good idea to just come up as like, I don't know what I'm doing at all. But his advice was like, stay humble, like Abraham Lincoln, who said, I'm president, but I have no idea what I'm doing. And so Leslie seems to believe him still, which I don't understand why. But mainly just because she likes Tom. Tom's a good kid.
Yeah, and he says it in such a convincing way. You know, like he's just very matter of fact about it.
Right. Tom is all swagger all the time. And yeah. So when he asks...
I think Leslie's a little self-aware as far as like it's just weird because she kind of picks and chooses early on how, or the writers do, like how little she knows just about how naive she is about stuff. And so I think a part of her character is that she's like, oh, okay, well, I haven't heard of that, but Tom is in the know. So that's got to be right. You know, like he's one of the cool kids. So I'll just go with what he's saying.
Right. Yeah. Tom knows stuff. Leslie doesn't, is what Leslie believes. So, and she genuinely believes that nobody is going to lie to her.
Yeah. Everybody's good deep down.
Right. Which, yeah, we'll see how that works out, Leslie. So, so they're trying to do the speech, and then it cuts to Andy and Anne, who, again, you see the Raggedy Ann doll in the background. But Anne's getting ready to go to the awards with Leslie, and she's looking forward to it because she's never really been able to get out of the house really with Andy having two broken legs. And so she's looking forward to an evening out. And so she's dressing up because Leslie told her to dress up. And here, I mean, Andy doesn't really do much at all in this episode other than be the reason Anne has to come home.
Yeah, I love the line, how come you never dress like that for me? And she's like, well, I'm not really going to get dressed up to go to the couch. And he laughs. He's like, ha. And then it slowly dawns on him. He's like, oh man, I'm very lame. Like he laughs at his own burn. It's great.
Right. Yeah. Which Andy will do often in this show. Like he'll laugh when people are, because he doesn't really get it, but he's like, kind of like a character we will see later, Purd.
Yeah.
The cadence of that is it's a joke. And so he knows it's a joke and it is time to laugh, but it's like, oh, that's actually kind of mean. It kind of burns.
Wait, that's at me?
Yeah. Right. He's basically a puppy.
That's true.
Like if you tell your puppy, you're a dumb dog, in like that kind of voice, they're going to love you anyway.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So, so Anne and Leslie get on the phone and Anne's talking about getting ready, and Leslie's going in her own way to get ready for the banquet. And so she goes to Salvatore, who is the barber for the movers and shakers of Pawnee, and she wants to get a political haircut. And the question that I wrote in my notes at this point is, what is a political haircut? If you had to choose, Jeremy, the most political of haircuts, what would you go with?
I do a left side part, slightly slick back with a matte pomade. A little, off the ears. That's what I'd go with.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
How about you?
I'd go with the Mr. T.
Yeah.
It's like 3 mohawks. But in like A-Team era Mr. T. I don't know what Mr. T's doing now other than tweeting about the Olympics.
Not Rocky Mr. T.
Yeah, not Rocky Mr. T, but A-Team era Mr. T with the three-stranded mohawk. And mainly because it acknowledges that there is a left wing and a right wing, but Mr. T, he's trying to go down the middle to find a path forward.
He's a centrist.
Yeah. And he pities the fool who tries to pull him out of the center.
Yeah.
So
that's
what I would do.
Okay. That's good.
So I wish more politicians would consider their haircuts.
Yeah. Really send a message with your haircut.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've got the mullet, which is sending a message that, like, you can take me seriously, but on the weekends, I'm all about the party.
That's right.
Like business up front, party in the back. You've also got the buzz cut, which is like saying, I really don't care. I'm just going to get the job done. You also have the perm, which is saying, I can't get wet forever.
Yeah, humidity is my
will turn green.
Yeah, humidity is my enemy.
And also, anytime somebody gets a perm, they smell terrible. So,
and not only does it look like wet dog, but it smells like it too.
It does. It's awful. Did you ever have a perm?
I didn't.
Okay,
no,
me neither.
Yeah,
my mom would give herself perms at home, and it was awful. It was just bad for everybody. So
they call it a permanent, but it's not. So I think it's a lie anyway. So I don't know why people go for it.
Kind of like reading glasses.
Yeah, they don't read for me.
No, I still have to do all the actual reading. It's awful.
That's why I like movies better.
Yeah, it moves. Telling you the truth.
It's no reading.
So, yeah, or the talking pictures, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
They're telling you what you do. Trains. Just stupid. So Leslie goes in to get a political haircut. And Salvatore doesn't care at all about anything. And when Leslie comes in, he's like, what do you want me to do with this?
Something powerful and dynastic.
And he's like, I don't even know what that means.
Right.
So, yeah, but he usually cuts men's hair. And here again, we have another example of Leslie projecting importance onto something that is utterly unimportant. And the haircut that she wants to communicate, it doesn't really matter. But she thinks it does because, well, this is where the mayor gets his haircut.
Right. I mean, Salvatore even calls it the mayor.
The mayor, yeah. And when you think about the mayor, learning later on who the mayor of Pawnee is, there is no hair for the mayor. Like, what is he cutting? Because that person is bald at this point in his life. So,
yeah.
Anyway, yeah, he doesn't care. I know. I didn't tell him who.
That's true.
Who Mayor Gunderson is, but yeah. So Leslie gets her political haircut. It cuts to Anne, who is at the banquet, and she is even more dressed up than last time we saw her in like a formal gown, and she's looking great, ready to party, and she's recognizing right away, I am way overdressed. And then Leslie comes in with a man's haircut and a pantsuit, basically communicating to the world as they are standing together that Anne and Leslie are a couple, which is not true. And Leslie probably never would have thought of this ever, but Anne figures it out right away. Like, oh, this is what people think. And there's a guy who comes and says, you guys are both so brave. And so this former council member, I can't remember his name. Did you catch his name?
No, but they were
okay.
Somebody very important because they were in rarefied air. He was
rarefied air, Anne. Rarefied air.
And once again, Leslie has no clue what's happening with all these comments because as they walk in, even April says, "Hello, sir." To Leslie, she walks in. So, and she's just kind of shakes it off. So,
yeah. She's not paying attention. She's on a mission. She's not paying attention to the social cues that are happening all around her. And so that's going to be one thread of what's happening at this banquet. Another thread is Ron, who only comes for the food. So we're beginning to see a little bit of this side of Ron, his love for various kinds of meats. And so this is his number 3 food wrapped in his number 1 food. Bacon wrapped shrimp. And so he gets as much of that as he can handle. Have you had bacon wrapped shrimp?
I have.
As a side note.
Yeah,
it's good. I can understand why Ron would be willing to endure a government award banquet for bacon wrapped shrimp. I get it.
Yeah, who would think that like a land animal wrapped around a sea insect would taste good? But it does. It works.
It does. Both of those animals are also considered non-kosher. And so I wonder if it's two negatives making a positive.
Now we're solving problem. Now we're getting to the root of it.
Thank you.
What else could apply to that?
Math
and heroin together.
No, I didn't say meth. I said math.
Oh, math.
So Ron's basic whole goal here now is just to get as much shrimp as he possibly can. And as Leslie sits down at their assigned table, she looks behind her and she sees that the person that she needs approval from, former Tellison Award winner Janine Restrepo, is sitting at the next table.
Oh, man.
And so she wants to get Janine to give her a zoning approval for the park. And so she's trying to figure out how to get Janine's attention, how to have a conversation. And the suggestions that Mark gives are, hi, my name is Leslie. I'd like to talk to you about zoning a park. And but Leslie can't do that. It's got to be something good. It's got to be something splashy and attention grabbing. Because Leslie never goes halfway.
Yeah.
Yeah, very political. And so this is where we start to see Leslie turn towards the dark side of local politics. And I'd like to just take a moment just to reflect on Leslie and how this will change her. So let's just take a moment of silence. That was too long. But yeah, so like Leslie is like really trying to figure this out, and everybody else is just like, we'll just talk to her. And then they start, Mark and Anne and Leslie start plugging each other's nose for some reason.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Even Tom's like, what are you guys doing? Like when Tom is saying, you guys are being ridiculous, you know it's bad.
Right. Yeah. So then Leslie goes and talks to Marlene and says, hey, what should I do? And she's like, well, you should try to butter her up. And in your speech, and Leslie's speech is, it is so great to be with all of you, and especially you, Janine Restrepo. So that's her idea of buttering her up in the speech.
Yeah, and in her speech, she says nothing.
No, like just Marlene is my mother.
Yeah.
And that's it. So all her work on that speech went down the toilet because she tried to impress Janine Restrepo. And then the speech doesn't work at all. And then we see Tom come and say, hey, we need to leave. He was trying to get Mark to go and hit on girls together, which is interesting. Like the timing of this, like Leslie tries to do the speech. Tom is staying just through where his boss is giving a speech. Like that's as far as he wanted to go in this whole evening, is to, when Leslie's done, I'm out of here. Because he doesn't care really about all of this, even though he gives a speech of his own for Marlene in honor of her, but he doesn't care about the whole thing. He's got his own agenda of what he wants to do, which is hit on girls. Yeah. And he's a married person. So what is this all about? What is Tom's deal?
He's the worst.
He is the worst. But he's also a man stuck in the middle that we will learn about more next season on Parks and Recreation. So Marlene then, after the speech, tells Leslie about who the Tellison winners are. Because she says, you need to tell Janine that we know about her husband's DUI, that she's trying to keep quiet. I was like, I don't know if I can do that. But Marlene tells her that all the Tellison winners are awful. They're all terrible.
Interesting. And
so Leslie's starting to see how bad local politics truly is. So, yeah. All right. Anything that you wanted to highlight so far? We're kind of like clipping along here.
No, it's good.
Okay.
We're moving through. I think the one thing that kind of stuck out is the bar that they wanted to go to is Scully's bar, which Scully is a character in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, also done by Michael Schur.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah, these names, they come back around.
Yeah.
So Leslie tells Anne, I'm going to try to blackmail Janine Restrepo. Anne says, that's a terrible idea. And this is where Anne and Leslie have their first fight as friends.
Yeah.
Because Anne is saying it's a bad idea. And Leslie says, Andy has 3 crutches and one of them is you. What?
And the other 2 are crutches.
Yeah. And that's a pretty solid burn.
Yeah.
That's a pretty intense statement for Leslie to make. And she's so wrapped up in trying to get her way that she unthinkingly hurts her friend. And
but
it's something that
what? No,
it's something that she's been thinking.
Yeah.
About her relationship with Andy, but it's still like that was a low blow.
Yeah, and Anne even said to her, "Do you do everything that your mom tells you?" So there's even in this fight, there's truth from both sides. But as we learn as humans, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And in the heat of the moment, the way Leslie said it was really, really mean. And then Anne's like, "I'm good. I'm out. I don't need this," and takes off.
Yeah, and yeah. So this is part of where I'm like, man, I don't really like Leslie.
Yeah,
she's a mean person. And like she's so she's got such tunnel vision on her goal that she doesn't really see how she affects other people, which is consistent for her character throughout.
Yes.
But this is one of those times where she's like, man, this was just mean and not cool. So yeah. So Anne leaves to get a sub sandwich for Andy. And the sub sandwich consists of meatball and ham and Cool Ranch chips. So those are the things that we know Anne is getting.
I love that too, because Andy's he's barely in this episode, but even when he is like on the phone, it's like he's doing something disgusting. Like, can I get a sandwich with ham and meatballs? It's like, I don't even know if they can do that. Right. So even if he's not in the scene, he's still being really gross, which is, I thought was fantastic.
Right. Now, the other side of this is if we only see what the cameras show us.
Mm-hmm.
But Anne is dressed up like she's going to prom. But she's also going to stop at Subway on her way home to get the sandwich, right? Subway does not have a drive-thru. She's going to have to go inside a Subway dressed like she's going to prom to to order this disgusting sandwich, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then it cuts to Tom and Mark at the bar, and Tom is wearing a ridiculous orange hat because he's trying to peacock, which is also the name of the NBC streaming service coming soon. Yeah, so he's
they really thought that out.
Right. They planted the seed way back in 2009.
Wow. That's marketing. That's dedication to the marketing team right there.
Exactly. And so, but Tom's goal is try to learn from Mark, who is like super suave, right? And everything Tom's doing is not working. And as if we just follow this thread through, Mark has no interest in helping Tom, but also even as he's talking to the women at the bar, he's like, I'm over this. This is dumb. This is stupid. Yeah. He just leaves.
He wants more.
He wants more than just the girls in the bar. So,
and what I think is great here too is that Tom makes this comment about how if picking up, girls at bars, if there's a Tellison Award for that, you would have won it several times. And there's something coming up, which I just think is great. So they plant all these little things in here for this one shot, which I love coming up. So Mark gets out of there and he heads back, and that was good.
Okay. What shot are you talking about that you love? Is it back at the banquet?
Yeah, but okay. It was just coming up later because at this point Leslie goes back and goes back to Anne's house.
Well, no, we haven't seen Leslie actually try to do she tried to employ the blackmail, and it goes terribly because Janine is like, what do you want? And yes. Leslie then realizes like, oh, this was not good. What I did is wrong. and she panics and she can't like actually like, follow through with the threat, the quid pro quo, if you will. And so she panics, and Janine throws water in her face and says, "Get out of here." And Leslie's like, I'm so sorry. And then Leslie leaves and then goes to Anne's house.
That's right.
And as Leslie's leaving, Mark comes to back to the banquet looking for that something more.
Right.
Which we don't know what that really is yet, but he knows it's not the girls at the bar.
Right. And at that point, that's that shot coming in. But Leslie is starting to talk about how she says that the people who win awards aren't always the best people. And as that voiceover, as she's saying that, they cut to a shot of Mark entering the empty ballroom. And there's a picture of her mom who is being, getting this Tellison Award. And then Tom had made the comment about getting a Tellison style awards for picking up, girls at bars. And so I just thought it was really cool to kind of tie all that together in that one shot and saying like, yeah, the people who win these awards aren't great. Speaking about to her mom and even Mark. And then also just the fact that Marlene knows that she's not a great person because she says the people who win Tellison Awards are terrible people. And if she's getting one, what does that make her? Right. And yet Leslie's still like so starry-eyed about her mom. She doesn't see that in the beginning. And it takes this whole debacle for her to realize that if she's going to win it the right way. And that's where I think during this episode, yeah, she was a terrible person and you could see how the power is corrupting Leslie, but then she gets out of it right at the end. And that's why that water in the face kind of like wakes her up to the fact that, hey, this isn't who I am. This isn't the way I want to do things, which I'm really glad that he did that. And they didn't mess around with that throughout her story arc. Cause she has so much more to offer.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like the water in her face is a baptism of sorts. It's a moment of repentance.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure nobody has ever made that connection before, and there's probably a lot of good reasons.
But that's why people come here. That's exactly why they listen.
Exactly. You went to film school.
Sure.
I went to Bible school. We're bringing these things together.
That's right.
So, yeah. If we ever do have a conversation with Greg Daniels or Mike Schur, who were co-writers of this episode, I will ask them, was that a baptism? Are you guys Lutheran, Presbyterian? Do you sprinkle?
Is it sprinkling? Yeah.
What do you do? What do you do, Mike?
Yeah, it's interesting that she splashed it in her face. She didn't pour it over top of her head. And I think that really symbolizes what denomination they're really trying to, I'll let you guys decide which is which, but yeah.
A lot of people don't know this, but there is a whole tradition of aggressive baptisms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, if you study church history, it's in there.
I think my favorite is the Nacho Libre style.
Exactly.
Just dunk him when they're not looking.
How come you have not been baptized? Man, I love that movie. That movie's so good. Okay, so Leslie leaves, goes back to Anne's house to try to apologize, to reconcile. And they have a moment of truth where it's like, yeah, you know what? Some of the things you said, I have to consider.
Mm-hmm.
And so Leslie and Anne are coming to understand each other better, but also to like Anne is starting to see that, you know what, Andy's not great. He's not a good fit for Anne. And so they hug and they're sitting there on the couch and Andy comes out on his crutches and he's mad because it looks like Anne is hugging a dude in their house. And so, because of Leslie's haircut. And so,
and all of these snide remarks or just the little comments like Tom saying, "You're the man, Leslie." And it's just all the stuff throughout the piece that she ignores. And then it's Andy at the end, who just basically just comes out and says it. "I thought you were a dude," and she still looks at the camera like, I don't know,
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. So, and then I love the last scene with Leslie After this, there's a scene with Tom at the bar trying to convince girls that they like the color orange because of his hat. But before that, there's a scene where this is the first time we learn anything about Leslie's dad.
Yeah.
When she says that her dad lives in Florida in a cemetery.
Yeah.
Lives in Florida in a cemetery. So I don't know what happened there. Because if Leslie's in Indiana, raised in Pawnee, and how did her dad get to Florida? Was there a divorce with Marlene and her dad? What happened? Was he on a business trip and he died? I don't know.
Maybe he tried to trade babies for land.
It all comes back around. So, yeah, so that's The Banquet. It was a fun episode.
Yeah.
Where I didn't like people, but there were some good jokes. Got to know Ron more, and I was like, I like Ron.
Mm-hmm.
Ron's the best part of this episode. He doesn't really cause any trouble. So, was there any trivia, any tidbits that you picked up as you were thinking and preparing for this recording?
No.
Good. I looked also, and I found one thing where Anne is calling Andy, and you can see in the background that April is like sneering at Anne. Like, we don't know why April doesn't like Anne, but it seems like she just doesn't like her at all, and that's it. That was the trivia. I'm like, oh, lame trivia. So, yeah. Anyway, end on a high note there, Jason. So that's what I'm good at. Episode 5, season 1 in the can. Next week, episode 6, season 1. There's going to be so much great character development happening in this next episode. So many great threads coming together. It will be great. I'm looking forward to it. So,
me too.
We're going to see a rock show. We're going to see people really learning to walk again.
And, really selling it. So make sure you come back for that.
Next week on a very special Parks and Recreation, as talked about by Parks and Conversation. So, yeah. All right. Well, that's that then, right? Yeah,
I think we covered it. So
cool, man. All right. Well, enjoy the Seattle Dragons game tomorrow or whenever you see that. And I don't even know if they're playing tomorrow. But we'll catch you next time. All right.
Sounds good. All right. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye.